Hello, everybody. Thank you very much yourself for taking your time off to actually attend our seminar today. Now, for today's seminar, in fact, we will be having two speakers. The first speaker, Wise itself, will be our dealer, Ying Hao Wise, who will actually be giving you a brief introduction on what is there to offer on our platform with reference to the Thailand market Wise as well. And the second speaker, Wise itself, will actually be Mr. Danny. Mr. Danny is actually one of the fund manager who is actually from our Phillip Thailand company Wise. And he's actually in collaboration with our managed account product team Wise as well, right, in which we'll be launching, or if in fact have already launched, is our very own Thai managed account services. In fact, if you'd like to know more, please feel free to have an interactive session with Mr. Danny Wise in asking of all stocks-related questions that you may have, or even any doubts at all. Right? Without further ado, let us start with the seminar. We'll begin with Ying Hao first.
Thank you, Andy. Good evening, everybody, and thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming down for the seminar today. Just before the presentation, I'll just give you a brief outlook of what PhillipCapital has to offer. Actually, you can access the Thai market online and trade Thai stocks if you are interested in the Thai market. And this actually, if you visit our Google websites, you can actually see the further details such as our brokerage rates, which is online is 0.5% and broker assisted is 0.75%, with minimum of 500 Thai baht and 750 Thai baht respectively. So for some of you who have never traded in Thai stocks before, their lot size is actually trading 100 shares per lot, as well as actually the Thai stocks actually has three different types of tranches. One is a local tranche, one is a non-voting depository receipt tranche, and one is a foreign tranche. And for PhillipCapital wise, if you want to key the trades online, we actually only offer the NVDR as well as the foreign tranche. The foreign tranche is usually more illiquid, although it offers you to have voting rights, and most people usually will trade on the NVDR. That's why we'll be offering it on our online platform. Yep, so just for more info, the trading hours for the Thai market is Singapore time is 11 to 1:30 as well as 3:30 to 5:30. And just for information, we will not participate in the pre-opening sessions. Yeah, so if you have any further questions, you can always direct your queries to your respective trading reps, or maybe you can just talk to me later after the presentation if you want to know more about trading in the Thai market. Yeah, thank you very much, and I'll pass the mic back to Andy.
Thank you, Ying Hao. Now, let's, without further ado, introduce Mr. Danny for the second speaker in content. Mr. Danny?
Thank you very much for being here with me today. How many people have been to Thailand in this room? Could you please raise your hands? Oh, okay. Today I would like to cover the following points. I think that you will be interested in these points, which are the reasons why you're here today. One is that I'll give you a brief outlook on the Thai economy, on why Thailand is strong as a country. And two, I will cover the current political situation, the current market situation, for example. And three, I will cover our strategies and our approaches, and also touch on areas for investment opportunities. Okay, so our presentation will be divided into 4 parts, and at the end of each part, I'll allow time for a few questions if you have any. Okay. So Thailand, we are strategically located at this part of ASEAN. So we have a very good location between China, Malaysia, and Singapore, and we have an outlet to the sea as well. Okay. So Thailand would be the number 2 largest economy in ASEAN. After Indonesia, we have a population of about 68 million people, which would rank us in number 4. And in terms of GDP per capita, we would be number 4 in ASEAN. Here, you might be surprised to see that our unemployment rate is at about less than 1%. at about 0.9. So this bodes well for domestic consumption in the future because people have jobs, people have the ability to spend. Yes? Okay, sorry. Okay. And aside from that, if Thailand were a company, we would have a very strong balance sheet. You would see here the international reserves are at high levels compared to historically. You'd also see that the public debt to GDP is at about 46%. This is below our guideline of about 60%. And if you compare our debt to GDP to other countries, you'll see that it's very healthy. Okay. So over the past 10 years or so, our country has passed through many, many crises. You see here, we had a military coup in 2006 to topple the Thaksin government. We also had a subprime crisis which was faced throughout the world, a great flood, and political instability with the red shirts, yellow shirts, and so forth. But we have been still able to grow our GDP at a respectable rate of 4.1%. Okay. This is an example of the Great Flood. Would you know what these are from cars? So this would be Honda factory. This is actually a historic picture. It's very famous that you'd see cars for Honda factory underwater. Do you know this person? He's if you look at the Forbes ranking for this year, he would be ranked number 34 in the world. He's the owner of Ishitan and the previous founder of Oishi Green Tea. So this was what happened during the flood. He was trying to paddle back to his factory to see the conditions. So this is another famous picture from the Great Flood. And just to show you, this is my house. So in my house, the water is at this level in my house. At this level. You see here, this is my gate. This is the water mark. If I stand, it's about 2.5 meters on the road, below water. Okay. So we also have other crises such as Central World, the fire. Who have been to Central World in this room? Anyone? Yes. We had a fire it was burned down during the protest. And I was driving to work one day with all these smokes everywhere. Like I was in some Batman movie, End of the World Armageddon movie. It's like driving to work. I was wondering, like, do I really need to come to work on a day like this? Okay. So you see smoke like this all over from the highway. So you'd see that even with all the crises that have occurred, our GDP has grown by 4%. And how has our stock market done? You see here that our stock market has increased by how many percent? 1,141% since year 2000. So this is one key reason for the diversification because if you do not go out, like for example, you're only in Singapore, you may not be able to tap the higher returns in overseas market. Okay. Yes? I think it's adjusted, converted into USD basis for comparison purposes. Yes. Okay. So some people ask about what is the Thai economy like. We would say that our economy is based on exports. So 70% of our GDP is exports. And what do we export? Key goods would be like automotive and electronics. Okay. Thailand is ranked 10 in the world, top 10 in the world for car production. We produced about 2.4 million cars last year. And this is one of the challenges facing Thailand. You see in the past, export has grown at double-digit rates. However, after the Great Flood in 2011, exports have been rather low at single-digit rates. So production hasn't come really back to normal since the Great Flood. That's number one. Two, there is a demand slowdown. So if you look into the breakdown of the export components, you see that exports to China from Thailand have declined. Exports to Japan from China has also Thailand has also declined. And we also have the issue with shrimp disease or EMS, early mortality syndrome, and poor agricultural prices like rubber exports have been poor as well. But the good news is that the portion of ASEAN, the export value to ASEAN have been continuously increasing. You see here that exports to ASEAN have increased from 21 to 26%, and ASEAN is a growing region. As you can see here, CLMV growing, expected to grow by about 6%, ASEAN 5 about 5.5%. So border trade will be one of the key areas that drive growth in the future. In recent news, the military government has set up special economic zones around the border at 5 provinces. So you have special tax privileges, one-stop services to boost trade. So this is the tourism figure. You see that tourism is also very resilient to whatever happens in the world. Tourism for Thailand has grown at a compound rate of 10.6%. This is the number of international tourist arrivals. So you see military coup, fire, Great Flood, it has continued to increase at a good growth rate. And tourism is one of the key revenue contributors to Thailand. Okay. Did you see the slides just now? I also want to ask you, which country visits Thailand the most? Singapore. It's in the top 10, but it's not number 1. Any other guesses? China. Yes. China would be the number 1 amongst the top visiting nationalities to Thailand. Yes, Malaysia coming over from the border. Singapore would be around rank number 8. Yes. Pardon? China has more population to come. Okay. So here, I think it's another interesting slide. These are the 10 countries that are visited the most in the world. So number 1 would be France at about 83 million visitors. Thailand is actually ranked 10 at about 26.5. We expect possibly a slight decline in this number to maybe 26 million, but it's still very high. And yes, 83 million people visit France a year. Number of tourist visits, tourist arrivals in each country. So what I'm trying to share with you is that people visit France the most in the world, and Thailand is also one of the top 10 tourist destinations. Okay, so here is another challenge for Thailand in that this year, with the state of emergency, with the martial law, there has been a decline in tourism for the past 5-6 months or so. But here, if you look at the historical figures with Thailand, you see that the number of tourism has been very resilient. Let's see here, 911. It took only 2 months for the country to go back to the normal level of tourists. And for the most part, it only takes less than a year to go back to the normal levels. Okay. The current market situation. Anyone concerned about the coup in Thailand? Concerned. What are you concerned about?
It's going to be unending with the Russia coming because we have the northern
Oh, okay. I will say that the military is a solution, one of the solutions to the political problem. Because right now, you see that over the past 6 months, there has been no peace and order. You see demonstrations everywhere. But now with the military, you have seen more peace and order. They have implemented a curfew from 12 to 5 a.m. But then this curfew have been lifted so far. Okay. I'll talk more about the problems of Thailand and what the military will solve. One is that you see for the first quarter of this year, GDP fell by 0.6%. GDP fell by 0.6%. And then exports for the first quarter fell by 0.8%. So the military has stepped in to improve the economy, to improve the political situation. And I will show you how. These are the key areas that they have done so far. One is that they have paid out money to the rice farmers of 3 billion, which cannot be paid by an interim government because it does not have total power it has limited power as an interim government. 2, they have appointed a new board of investment. So there are investments in the pipeline of about 700 billion baht, which have been held up and cannot be pushed through. But now, with the new board of investment, it can be pushed through now. 3, in the past, we do not know what will happen with the fiscal budget for next year. How much will the budget be? Will we have a budget? But now, we have accelerated the disbursement of the 2014 budget. And we have been approved the 2015 budget as well. And next is that there is more clarity with the tax measures. Our corporate income tax is 20%. If you look here, it's one of the lowest in ASEAN, only behind Singapore. So they have extended the corporate income tax rate for another year, for 1 more year. And the VAT will also be kept at 7% for another year, which will help boost the economy. Okay. Do you think they will get the support from the people? Yes. So when you pay out the rice to the farmers are happy. And here, this also boosts the sentiment amongst the investors of the business people, with more investments being pushed through and more clarity with the tax measures. This is the roadmap for the next 1.5 years. This is a very important point. So if you want to know what will happen next, this is the military's plan. Phase 1 is to maintain peace and order, which they have successfully done. 2 is that we will have an interim government by September, and this will pave the way. And they are planning to have elections by the 4th quarter of next year. Okay, any questions so far? Yes. Anyone?
Why so long?
Why so long? That's actually an outstanding question. What is important here is to have the setup of the Reform Council. So the problem in the past was that there were protests because of corruption. People accused the Thaksin government of corruption, for example. So what the military is trying to do is that to clamp down on corruption. If you look at some of the policies that they have implemented, there will be more checks and balances. One is that there will be a super board, like various state agencies, right? They have their own board of directors. But now they will be overlooked by a super board. And 2 is that, for example, there will be less conflict of interest, as in previously the national police chief was appointed by the prime minister, but now the national police chief will be appointed by the previous person. So there will be less meddling in police affairs. So they need time to set up this Reform Council, which consists of 250 people to input into the new constitution, which will be accepted by the people in order to have a new election. Yes.
After the previous coup in 2006,
Yes.
There was some reform, and eventually took over because she won the election.
Yes.
And then effectively the yellow shirts couldn't accept it because she was deemed to be part of the Thaksin regime.
Yes.
And therefore we have this coup again. Suppose next year, after further reforms, a candidate allied to the red shirts wins again. Will the whole cycle repeat itself?
It is a possibility, but we expect that even on the red shirt camp, they would possibly pick someone that is more acceptable by other groups as well. Like after Yingluck, there was another person who came after her for a short period, which was also accepted by other parties as well. Any other questions? Yes.
After the imposition of martial law,
Yes.
how has it affected the financial sector, especially the stock exchange?
Okay, stock exchange. The stock have actually came up pretty well. I'll just skip a little bit for you. Oh. Anyway, it's in a few slides forward, but the stock market has came up about 9% since the military coup. This is due to better confidence from investors, better confidence by consumers.
External investor or your own people?
Our own people too.
Foreign investor?
Foreign investor, I can say that they are possibly more skeptical in the matter, but
We will be the foreign investor.
yes.
How about your exchange? You know, your Thai baht has
Uh-huh.
depreciated.
Thai markets?
Thai baht.
Thai baht. Thai baht have actually strengthened a little bit recently because of the increased political certainty and the better economic outlook. Pre-crisis. Oh, I don't think it will go back to those previous levels before the quotation of the baht. Anyway, I will continue a little bit with my presentation. I'll open more room for Q&A. Okay. What are the pros of having the military coup? One is that consumer confidence have improved very clearly. Two is that business sentiment has also improved. Three is that the GDP has been revised upwards from 4.8% for next year to 5.5%. Okay. And the cons? The cons is one, greater uncertainty over projects because they are trying to clamp down on corruption. They are analyzing each project in much more detail. So if you look at the news today, the bidding for the 1,800 megahertz spectrum has been delayed for 1 year. This 1,800 megahertz spectrum will be used for 4G, for example. And you also see that, for example, the investment in the new airport is put on hold for them to see if the budget can be reduced, could be saved, could be lowered. Okay. And another area that is a con is that the relationship with some foreign regions have deteriorated, like with the EU, because the Western world, they prefer a democratic government rather than a military coup. But in the end, according to the military, we have a 1.5 year roadmap to get ourselves back to having an election again. Okay, so you see here, this is a very clear graph. You see consumer confidence declining for 14 months in a row. And after the military coup, people have been having more confidence. You see here, GDP, this year with the first half being rather poor, GDP is likely to come in at about 1.5%. The military is trying to pick it up to 2% with the various things that they are implementing, which I explained earlier. And next year, GDP is expected to increase to 5.5%. You see here that the key drivers to investments, key drivers to growth will be government investment, which will pick up to about 10%, and private investment, which should grow by about 11%. So the government will spend more, investors have more confidence, business have more confidence, and will invest more. Okay. So to your earlier question, how has the market done since the coup? Market has came up 8.8% after the coup. So the investors have confidence in the matter. Okay. So this is just to show how resilient the Thai market is to various political events. So you see here, do you remember the Central World Fire I showed you earlier? For that event, it took only 3 months for the market to recover to the same level after the Central World Fire. And if you look here, did you remember the news about the airport shutdown, airport closure? With the airport closure and the subprime crisis, it took only about 13 months, about a year. So in about a year, the market recovered to the same level with various political events. Okay. So how does the Thai market compare to our regional markets? Thailand's forward PE is at about a 15-time level, similar to Singapore and mid-range compared to peers, and we are offering a decent dividend yield of about 3.17%, which is also in line with Singapore. So we see it as an opportunity to diversify overseas without losing in terms of valuation. In terms of PE and dividend, Thailand is quite competitive compared to peers. Okay. Any questions? Yes, please.
There were plans to lease the storage in Thailand, right?
Plans to
lease the SET. Has it been shared?
list the stock. They have not talked about it since. It has been quiet on that front. Any other questions? Okay. So our strategies is one, think long term. If you look at the great investors of the world, who do you think about? Warren Buffett. he would say things like his favorite holding period is forever, for example. So we try to think long term. We look at companies for the next 3 to 5 years. What will be better than today? Okay, if you're implementing the word margin of safety, so each is the concept of buying $1 for 50 cents. So we have to get good value for whatever we buy. Okay. Our process is, how do we find stocks? How do you think we find stocks? How would you find stocks investment ideas? Screener. Okay. Similar to other people, we also use Bloomberg, but for us, the key thing is what you screen for, rather than having the tool. For example, we might screen for things like companies that generate good cash to shareholders, like positive cash flow from operations, negative cash cycle days, for example. We will also screen for things like net. Are you aware of net? Anyone read Benjamin Graham's book? Net is a situation in which you subtract the current assets minus total liabilities. And basically, it's a concept in which it's similar to getting the long-term fixed assets for free. So we can screen. It's a matter of what you screen for, which is the key. So another key of our investment process is extensive company visits. We will visit not only our company that we are investing in, but also our competitors. There are competitors as well. So I go to, let's say I invest in LPN. We go to other companies that are property companies like Supalai, AP, and so forth. So we visit our target company, and we also visit our competitor as well. Okay. So these are examples of things that you can ask in the one-on-one visits. One, this is actually questions we ask in the real visit. Who is your most feared or admired competitor? Who is your most feared or admired competitor? Why would you ask this question? Anyone? Benchmark. You're getting the recommendation of an industry player. Like, for example, when we're investing in property, no matter who we ask, 7 to 8 times out of 10, they will answer LPN, which we will be presenting in this presentation as well. Next question is by Phillip Fisher. What are you doing that your competitors are not doing yet? This will show how much you have leapfrogged your competitors. And third is, what do you know that the markets don't know? What kind of analysis that you do in depth that allows you to be ahead of other players? So this has been our return so far. We have started in 2010 at the start of the year. Our portfolio have gained 236%. This is compared to the SAT of about 108%. Okay, so these are the key elements, key reasons why we are able to achieve good returns. We focus our concentration on 3 main areas: capable management, good business model, and compelling valuations. Okay. Hungry? Anyone haven't had dinner yet? Huh? Okay. Anyone have ever been to this restaurant before? Okay, at the back. Yes. Yes, they open here, correct. This is actually, okay, I showed you here that our return has been good over the past, so I would like to show you individual counters which have made our return good. And it will help explain why we have achieved good investment returns.
Sorry, what fund?
Huh? It's all fun.
What is the name?
Managed account. It's just called managed account, Thailand. Okay. This company, MK Restaurant Group, would have 2.6 million members. This would be half the population of Singapore.
Meaning what?
Meaning that it's a very large company with economy of scale. Okay, so it would serve 100,000 customers a day, 3 million customers a month.
They're all over the place, so you turn around, you see what MK.
When you go to Thailand, right?
It's a chain.
It's a chain. It's one of the largest restaurant chains in Thailand. Number one would probably be KFC, with more number of chains, but number two would be MK. But if you measure in terms of revenue, MK would be number one.
MK is 100% owned by Thai people.
No, after it listed, foreigners can also own MK. Yes, correct. So here is their famous dish. Have you ever eaten this at MK? My next question is, how many ducks do they sell a day? How many? Any guesses? A bit too many. They sell 20,000 ducks on festive days and about 10,000 on normal days. So they have a lot of economy of scale, a lot of bargaining power with their suppliers. For each type of vegetable, how much do they buy? They buy 5 to 10 tons. Imagine you're a housewife going to the market. How much do you buy? MK buys 5 to 10 tons for each type of vegetable. And they buy a total of, say, 50 to 100 tons, all combined for all types. Okay. So they're the number one in terms of the hot pot restaurants. They have the most number of branches for the Japanese restaurants. They have more branches than Fuji. Anyone been to Fuji in Thailand? They have more number of branches, but if you look in terms of revenue, they would lag behind Fuji because the restaurants for Fuji would be bigger. Okay. So our key investment thesis when we bought this company is one, restaurants. It's a cash business. You go, you pay cash. It's very cashy to the shareholders. But with me, suppose I'm the owner of MK, me selling 10,000 ducks a day, 20,000 ducks a day, I can bargain with my suppliers. I can bargain for 30-day, 60-day payment terms, but I get cash from my customers. Two is that they have a market share of 50%. Market share of 50% in the hot pot business. So have you ever been to their competitors' branches? Any of these you have been to? Hot pot, Shabushi, Koka. What I'm trying to stress here is that if you combine the number of branches for the key competitors, it will come up to 389. MK, they have 381. Almost equal to all of their competitors combined. So with the number of branches that they have bargaining powers over the malls. They get the best locations. And they have high margins compared to peers. Any one of you invest in the Singaporean stock exchange? What types of margins do you get for restaurant businesses in Singapore?
Less than 10%.
Less than 10%. This is net margin? MK gets a net margin of about 13 to 15%. The highest amongst Thai restaurant companies. Okay. So you see here that MK has expanded overseas. They are expanding into Japan at about 32 branches. So if you go to Japan, you might run into one MK or two over there. They have 2 MK in Singapore and 4 Yayui, which is their Japanese restaurants here in Singapore as well. Okay. Looks familiar to anyone? This is their MK branch in Singapore at Orchard Road. Okay. It positions as the most famous restaurant in Thailand. So you better go there. Haven't tried the one in Singapore. Sometimes when companies go overseas, they have to tailor-make it to the local taste. So I might not be 100% like what we locals eat. We consider it authentic Thai food, yes. Okay. So this is the branch in Vietnam, full, jam-packed as well. And this is what we did with MK. Would you agree that MK is a good company after my presentation? Very good company. With the QE tapering concerns, M has came down below the IPO price of 49 baht. Yes, they just IPO like around last year. Price came down below IPO. We bought it at around this level, 47 baht, below the people who queued out for the IPO shares. And the MK has continuously increased, and it was included as part of SET 50, or the 50 largest companies in Thailand. So with that, more funds buy it to make it part of their fund, and the stock price came up, and we took it as an opportunity to trim down a little bit. So from MK, we made a gain of, say, 30% in the past year. Okay. Any questions?
How many of these branches of MK?
Yes.
The shop lot is owned by MK, not leased. From there, you know the asset value.
They virtually all are leased. They hardly own any of the restaurants themselves. They rent from the malls. They rent the space from the malls. They do not really own the locations themselves.
What is the practice in Thailand? The restaurant, do they own their restaurant?
If you're in the malls, you have to be on this model. Yes.
Do they have a HQ? They have a building? They own it?
Yes, they recently built a new HQ at near the Suvarnabhumi Airport, Bang Na area. New HQ. Okay. Interesting thing about MK is that they have about 400 MK restaurants, 100 Yayui, which is the Japanese restaurants. With the IPO, they have built a new central kitchen, which supports another 500 branches. So they aim to fill this new central kitchen up in the next 6 to 7 years. So if you look at their expansion plans, they will expand by about 60 to 70 MK and Yayui per year, with the opening of Central, opening of Robinson, Tesco, Big C, and so forth. Yes. Any questions?
MK is cash rich, as I would say.
Right.
Do they diversify?
Okay.
They have no asset.
Okay. I will elaborate this.
They have all the money. They don't invest something else. One day, you never know. At least you got asset. So we feel more confident.
Okay, I'll just explain what they're trying to do with their cash. One is that from the IPO, they raised 9 billion baht in cash. 9 billion baht is around 300 million US dollars. They are very cash rich, and what they are trying to do now is look for M&A opportunities. When we talk to them, they say that they're offered a deal a week, one deal a week to look at. So this is one of the ways that they're trying to expand. They look at chains from Philippines, for example, that they're looking at. And they also paid out dividends of about 70% of net profit, which they also look to increase in the future in terms of dividend per share. Okay.
So you were saying dividend payout is 70%?
Last year they paid out about 70% of net profit. 70, correct. Okay. I'll go to my next stop.
So they haven't diversified.
Mainly in the restaurant business, maybe new types of restaurants. Maybe today they have Japanese, they have the hot pot business, they might look to Italian, to other types of restaurants, but they're not moving out of this area.
Have the main shareholder, the owners, Thai?
Thai, yes. Thai. Okay. Next company. This is a worthy name for the company. Condo King. You just don't get this name to everyone. Okay. So, LPN, they are the #1 condominium player in Thailand. They have about 10 to 20% market share. Okay, my question is, how many units does a normal condominium project in Singapore have? Anyone? Yes. 300 to 500. Their condo town is their concept name. Condo town has 500 to 4,000 units. 500 to 4,000 units. And they're recently trying to launch a township concept. How many units do you think this project have, the township concept? Oh, 10,000, correct. You're trying to launch a project with 10,000 units. So if you remember my 3 quotes, what are you doing that your competitors are not doing yet? This is what you're doing. Where? This one would be near Don Mueang Airport, the old airport. It's outskirts, the surrounding provinces. So, strong brand. Last year when they launched projects, most are sold out in one day. One day they sell out 2 billion, 4 billion baht worth of projects. They sell out in a matter of hours. This year is a bit slower because of the uncertain political situation this year. But in normal circumstances, the companies should expect to sell 70% of their units at launch. Okay. They have product innovation. Okay. They are amongst the first companies to do small-sized condominiums at 22 square meters. And they focus on a large market, as in it is cheaper to buy than rent. So instead of paying your monthly payments to rent a place, you might as well pay the monthly installments to buy LPN's condo. It's cheaper to buy than to rent. And they're catering to the rental market, which is a huge market in Thailand. They have fast construction time. How long does it take for companies in Singapore to build high-rise buildings? 3 years? LPN takes 1 to 1.5 years from project launch to transfer to the completion of their project. They take 1 to 1.5 years. Very fast? This is because if you look at their projects look the same at different locations. It's standardized design. 2 is that they have contractors that have worked with them for more than 10 years. These contractors work exclusively for only LPN. They do not do contractor work for other companies. They do only for LPN only. And because they have worked with each other for a long time, it's like a football team. You know what your friend will do. Okay. So because their projects look the same, have a similar design type, they're able to ask for environmental impact assessment faster than the competitors because it's basically the same project design type. So it takes them 5 to 6 months versus 6 to 8 months for competitors to get the construction permit. Okay. We call this the miracle of LPN. Does this surprise you? LPN, you have to note, is a property company. It's a property company. It's not supposed to look like this. Correct? Property companies should look like this. They're supposed to be cyclical, to go up and down according to the economic cycle, not to have revenues increasing like this, especially with these events going on. Hence the miracle of LPN. And you'd also look at the gross margin of the company. It has been very stable. So the stability of the gross margin shows that the company is well managed in terms of cost control. You see the SG&A, selling expenses to sales, amongst the lowest in the industry at about 11 to 12% SG&A to sales. And you look at the net profit. Some companies would only have increasing revenue, but no profit, or profits that go up and down. But if you look at LPN, what's the profit like? It increases year after year. And with this, you get an increasing dividend per share over the year for a property company, which is very, very unlikely. Okay, what did we do with the company? With the QE tapering concerns, in the middle of last year, the share price came down, and we are able to buy the top-notch property company in Thailand with the highest market share, fastest construction time, with 15% growth long-term at a PE of about 10 times earnings. So we think that we have mentioned the key to investment success are three things. Good management. This company has proven that they have good management, and we have to buy it at compelling or reasonable valuations. We think that at a PE of 10 times, trailing PE 10 times, it offers good value when we bought it, and the share price has also picked up, and it's another company that we have also made 30% over the past year. Any questions about LPN? Okay. Peter Lynch often says that you should not be invested long-term in a cyclical company. It's not really ideal situation to do that, but maybe LPN might counter to that logic. Even with a property company, you can get good returns over the long term. Do you know this company? Securities. This is another counter that we hold. Unlike LPN mainly does the high-rise condominiums. So in their portfolio, 90% of their portfolio would be high-rise and less than 10% would be low-rise. Securities would be different. They have both condominiums and they have single detached house, which makes up about 50% of their portfolio. Some years 60-40, but mainly it's half-half. So they are very versatile. And you see here that they're upcountry, they're in Bangkok, they have projects both in Bangkok and upcountry. So they are very diversified in terms of product type, both condominiums and low-rise, very diversified in terms of location. Okay. So this company, they have the highest gross margin in the industry amongst the top large companies in the property sector. What is the gross margin of property companies in Singapore? What kinds of margins do you achieve? Anyone could share? Maybe capital land and so forth. Anyone looked at? Okay. Securities makes a gross margin of 40%. 40% gross margin. When the industry average, industry standard is 30 to 35%. Net profit margin is 20%. Other people are making 15%. Why can they do this? That's why we say in the previous slide that the devil is in the details. You need to not only know that they're good, you need to know why they are good. One, they buy the raw materials themselves. Other developers would buy it through contractors. And what do you think happens when you buy it through a contractor? They mark up the price of the material that when they sell it to you. Two is that because the background of the founder of this company is an architect, his concept is always to maximize saleable area. When you buy land, the shape of the land is important, and how you maximize the saleable space is also key. They are a very well-managed company. Unlike other companies, they do not need to have brokers to sell their projects. They can sell it themselves. They do not need to hire outside consultants to look at their projects. They have in-house engineers. Okay. So here, just to show you, return on equity with a debt to equity ratio that is well managed, ROE is more than 20%. More than 20% ROE. So we bought this company because we believe that regardless of the political situation, this company has a bright future for over the next 1, 2, 3 years. Why do I say that? In Thailand, revenue is recognized as transfer. So if I launch a project today, I sell all of them, I cannot book my income today. I have to book my income when the project is completed and transfer to the customer. So here, there is 15 billion worth of backlog or revenue waiting to be recognized. This is more than what the company achieved in the past. This does not include additional sales of inventory, does not include sales of new projects. So you see here, backlog revenue here, backlog alone is more than what the company achieved in previous years. Target is 20 billion, which would be a growth of 57% revenue. And after we look at this, we have to, it's like a chess game. We have to look at what happens then after that as well. Revenue waiting to be recognized in the next year would be 14 billion, which is also more than what the company achieved in prior years. Okay. So here, QE tapering concerns, Bangkok shutdown concerns, what have we done? You bought it at 19 baht, you buy it at 18 baht, you buy it at 14.5 baht. Because when we make the projection, it is rather clear. The company has a stable gross margin, about 40%. The company has stable and secure backlog of that I showed you, 15 billion and 20% down payment requirements. So you see here that based on our projection, we are projecting EPS of 2.3 to 2.5 baht. So if you times it by 10, which is pretty standard range for the company, you get a target price of 23 to 25 baht, which we feel very confident about when we bought the shares. What do you think happened next? Yes.
What is your exit strategy for this?
Exit strategy, good question. Here, share price, after that, it came up. Whether it's with the increasing consumer confidence after the coup or the better financials that the company will achieve with its backlog. After that, our average price would be close to 16, 17 baht. The share price came up to 24.6 and we're starting to trim around this level. Because in our mind, our target price is about 23, 25 baht based on our EPS range that we calculated. Okay. Any questions?
When you exit 30%, you hit the price.
Okay, that's another good question. What do we do when the company hit our target price? What do we do? If you remember MK in our earlier slide, after it passed 60, we sold. But we did not immediately sell. What we did, the first thing we did when the company reaches its target valuation is to visit the company, to ask for whether there are new developments so that we can readjust our model. For the case of M, there's not much to adjust. They still say they're expanding 50 to 60 branches a year, increasing the price of food prices by 3 to 5% a year. So there's not upside to our valuation model, so we sold. Supalai is similar. I'm actually going to see them this Monday. Here, we trim because we hold 10% of Supalai. After the share price came up a lot, it came up to maybe 12, 15% of our portfolio, and we decided to trim down to the 10% that we originally hold. But the key decisions that we will make will be based on a conversation with management of the developments that will occur. Any other questions? Okay. CPO. Okay. Today, I presented to you one of the best restaurant companies in Thailand. I presented to you one of the best property companies in Thailand in LPN and Supalai. I do not think most people would disagree with this. CPO would be one of the best companies in the retail sector. How many 7-Elevens would you have in Singapore? Okay. Our research team did a brief study. I understand it's about 5 to 600. In Thailand, as of the end of last year, we have 7,400 stores. 7,400 stores. This number is not really significant in itself. But if you look at the number of competitors, the branches, the stores that the competitors have, the nearest one is at how much? At 1,000. So it outnumbers the nearest competitor 7 to 1. 7 to 1. At each 7-Eleven store, they use 10 people, 3 shifts, 10 people. So 7,000 stores, 7,005, how many people do you have? at the stores. 75,000. Only at the stores, you have 75,000 people. If you combine it with the number of people at HQ, for example, at the warehouse, you get to close to 100-some thousand people. So with their scale, they have their own college. They're able to have their own retail college to train people to provide the growth expansion opportunities. Okay. So you see here, this is another well-managed company with a very consistent track record. You see, they open close to 500 branches a year, no matter what happens. The number of branches continue to increase. Okay. CPL has been listed for about 10 years, roughly 10 years. The worst same-store sales on record that the company has, how much is it? How much do you think is the worst same-store sales that the company has? This is the worst one, -1. -1 is the worst same-store sales that the company ever had. So you compare the amount of sales the same branch does compared to the previous year. And it declined by only 1.1%. The key reason being the cold weather. It's quite funny when they say the cold weather, but it really has an impact because they sell a lot of beverages in their stores. They sell like ice cream, magnums, and so forth, and the sales of these products dropped. And you have to remember that in Q1, even with the Bangkok shutdown, same-store sales is -1, very negligible, very insignificant. You see spending per ticket. People spend more each time they visit CPL every year, from 54 baht to 62 baht. Number of customers visit CPL increase every year per branch from 1,002 to 1,300 customers. Okay. So that is why we stress that in every crisis there is an opportunity. The key thing is to keep a clear head, keep a clear mind, and don't be too emotionally involved. Look at the facts. So we think that CPL is another well-managed company, and we took this as an opportunity to buy at these levels. Okay. Buffett says, time is the friend of a great business. So this is an example of one of the great businesses in Thailand, a 10-bagger, more than a 10-bagger. Okay. Any questions?
The valuation for the CPO usually trade above 30 over times.
30 times PE, yes. But I think
purchasing at 30 over time, or you don't have an average PE that you want to get off.
what we do, our key valuation methodology is not PE. It is DCF. We use DCF with companies that are predictable, like CPL, number of branches expands.
Are you projected in 10 years, 20 years?
What we normally do, I really thank you for this question. When we analyze a company,